Dangerous, deadly, illegal. Tonight, the county's top cop says much of this stuff was being made in the back of that plaza.
They got away with it for a little bit, but at the end of the day, they're not going to get away with it for very long.
There's another aspect to this game that is the economic side of it. There's a deal between the feds and the state, and that's asset seizures.
They call it an equitable sharing program where they encourage local law enforcement to seize items that may be involved in criminal activity. They do an 80-20 split.
Without even getting a conviction, and then they keep the bulk of the money or the assets seized.
Maybe you just want to see the kind of stuff the government seizes from criminals. Right now, you can actually check out a number of forfeited vehicles going up for auction tomorrow at the Apple Towing in Guadalupe.
These are awesome cars. This one caught my eye, of course, first. It's a 1968 Chevy Camaro.
The guy with the nice ride, I'll lock him up. I'll seize his car. I'll hit a house. I'll seize bank accounts. I'll seize land. All because I'm producing for the state. There's an incentive for the state to say, do it. But the law is such that the onus to get back your property is on you, not on the police department. You have to fight to get back something through the court system that they took away, that they had no right taking in the first place.
Between 1989 and 2010, an estimated $12.6 billion was seized by U.S. attorneys in asset forfeiture cases. The growth rate of seizures during that time was nearly a 20% increase every single year.
In a country where I grew up, America, where, you know, everybody's so proud of having guns and proud of their freedom. No, I'm not afraid. Really go plant some cannabis in your front yard and tell me how fast it takes for the man to come and take everything you own.
Every year, the DEA tells you how many seizures they made. All that tells you is that we have failed again.
What's your budget?
Well, currently,
approximately.
$2 million.
$2 million?
$2 billion.
Yeah.
You can look into any federal agency you want to. Literally in their budget, you will see that extra tens of millions of dollars are earmarked expressly to fight the war on drugs.
When you get to the top of both towers, the interests are the same. The major drug dealer wants to continue selling drugs. Law enforcement wants to continue trying to prosecute the people who are using the drugs, and there's a harmony there.
Have you ever seen the film of the head of the DEA, Lionheart, I believe is her name, when they asked her, is marijuana worse than heroin? And she sat there and stuttered around. She wouldn't answer the question.
Is crack worse for a person than marijuana?
I believe all illegal drugs are bad.
Is methamphetamine worse for somebody's health than marijuana?
I don't think any illegal drug
is good. Heroin worse for someone's health than marijuana?
Again, all.
I mean, either yes, no, or I don't know. I mean, if you don't know, you can look this up. You should know this as the chief administrator for the Drug Enforcement Agency. I'm asking you a very straightforward question.
She couldn't answer the question because she's a dyed-in-the-wool prohibitionist. And her industry, her life, is dependent upon us continuing to put 43 million people in jail.
About 85% of everybody in our country that uses any form of illicit substance whatsoever uses only marijuana. And so if you were to remove those people from the criminal justice system, the sheer number of everyone else in the country using every other illegal drug combined would not justify this colossal bureaucracy we have to fight the war on drugs. It would fall apart. If you lose marijuana prohibition, you lose drug prohibition, and the government knows it. They don't want to give that up because of the sheer money involved.
Going down the path to legalization in this country is reckless and irresponsible. It scares us. The treatment people are afraid. The education people are afraid. Law enforcement is worried what is going to happen.
People say, well, the vice cops who work on marijuana prohibition would be out of work, the people who work for the DEA, some of them would be out of jobs, the White House Drug Czar office, and so on and so forth. I mean, that's just the most lunatic defense of prohibition. By that logic, we should prohibit everything. because then we need cops to enforce food prohibition and housing prohibition and medicine prohibition.
Beginning in the 1980s, the police departments became a number-driven group. One arrest is one arrest. So if I spend a year and a half taking down a violent drug organization that's killed maybe 15, 20 people, and I lock up 6 guys, I get 6 ones. If I went out on the corner tomorrow, I get 15 ones. And they all count the same. There's no weighing for, like, this is the murderer, we give him 15 points, and this guy's the marijuana guy, we give him 0.2 points. No, it's all the same.
One thing about a cannabis arrest is it's easy, it's not dangerous, and it turns into a solved crime very quickly with very little paperwork.
The whole thing is numbers, because numbers generate revenue. That revenue keeps Congress giving you money. That money, then you can turn around part of it and keep pressure on Congress.
You don't come up with those numbers, they retaliate by giving you bad evaluations. That's basically what they did to me.
This is a business. We have almost a $5 billion budget a year, so we run it like a business, and it's fair to ask the employees here to do their fair share.
It's not easy to get a trafficker. It's not like walking up to the corner or shaking the lockers of a high school.
You reach a point, especially as an executive or a supervisor, where you are now part of administering the policies, and you start to ask the hard questions. Is it really worth a police officer's time to bust somebody for a marijuana cigarette, take them off the street, put them in jail, book the evidence, write the report, and then be able to go back out on the street and attend to public safety after you've been gone for 3 hours for one marijuana arrest?
I used to go to meetings of chief police officers in the UK. After the formal conference was over, around the bar and around the dinner table, they were all agreeing that there was no point in keeping cannabis illegal, and yet what they said when the cameras were rolling, when the microphones were in front of them, was completely different.
In the 15 years I've been in policy, I'm a little disillusioned about how much we were able to achieve. I'm very disillusioned on the ability of leaders to still pretend we are achieving.
You know, we need police forces. If I was in charge of society, of course I'd have a police force. But I make sure there are sensible laws for them to enforce. And there are plenty of police who feel like that too.
There's immense pressure on the inside of these sort of professions to toe the line and just keep quiet.
The culture will eat you up if, in fact, you come out while you're a police leader. If they were to come out and say that they're in favor of taxation, regulation of marijuana, they wouldn't get their promotions. They wouldn't be able to move through the ranks. They'll be labeled. And I've seen that take place.
There's a lot of work being done on what creates respect for laws. To what extent do people feel that laws are legitimate? And if they feel that laws are legitimate, they're likely to comply with them without needing to be coerced into them and punished. And the research is suggesting that people want fairness.
In a sense, what creates respect for law is justice, seeing it done. That elicits great respect when you actually see it being done. There's another kind of respect, though, which is respect for the stick. It's like the force of authority. Pretty much marijuana works with the stick.
One of the consequences of the war on drugs is people have stopped looking at the police as their protectors and more see them, right, as their potential persecutors.
The police department basically becomes the other to the community. And once you have that breakdown, then information stops flowing. So you don't learn about crimes. And then the only crime you really become interested in is the one you can solve, which is locking people up on the corner for using drugs.
And a great metric of that is murder clearance rates. So a murder is cleared when an arrest is made, somebody goes to jail. And in 1965, police were clearing about 90% of the murders that were committed in this country. That means for 90% of the murders in this country, there was an arrest and a charge. And today, that's under 65%. And that's, after all the tremendous technological advances in policing, DNA evidence and all sorts of forensics and, expanding police budgets and that sort of thing. I think if we were to look at one cause for that drop in murder clearance rates, it's the breakdown in the relationship between society at large and the police. And, that, by extension, that is a consequence almost entirely of the war on drugs.
By having to uphold these outdated and failed policies, it ruins our reputation, and it damages the community relations between the police and the policed as well. Whole generations have grown up distrusting their local police rather than seeing them as a potential protective layer of society.
When you do this, you change the whole nature of the game. And from 1980 on, the police become more and more militarized.
The initiation of the drug war was the initiation of a general loosening of constraint on search and seizure. It became just part of police practice to be breaking down the door. We see it now as a staple of cops. That's now our reality. That wasn't the reality before the drug war.
Columbia Police search warrant! Columbia Police search warrant! Columbia Police search warrant! Bang. Search warrant! Search warrant! Don't move! Search warrant! Search warrant! Don't move! Search warrant! Don't move! That's on him? Yep. Money in the dope.
Now you see police, and most often they look like soldiers, right? They're dressed in black, they have jackboots, and high caliber arms, and they don't walk the street and get to know the community, right? They drive around cruisers that look like they belong on the battlefield.
Day and night, that's the difference between the Greenville Police Department's new SWAT truck compared to the old one.
The truck has a lot of bells and whistles, from the simple storage compartments to the gun ports on the side. They're actually proud to say they did not use any taxpayer money.
We paid for it with seized funds. It came out of money we had seized from drug dealers.
That's where respect is lost. The officers on the street have lost it. The institution itself has lost it. You're not being seen as anything but the other. People warring on us.
The war on drugs has had a puzzling effect on how society seeks to police itself.